Hello, my name is Paul Geyer, and I'm here to chat with you today about building design specifications and tools. This is how I'll be chopping up the information, sort of the chapters in the books, you might say. Some overview comments, then a little background discussion about the knowledge we use in our engineering profession. Third, some historical perspective I think will be helpful in establishing the credibility of what I'm going to be pointing you towards. Fourth, something called the Whole Building Design Guide, which you will become familiar with as we move forward. Fifth, the Whole Building Design Guide portal. 6, design guidance. 7, project management. 8, operations and maintenance. And 9, documents and references. And 10, tools. All of these are subcategories of the whole building design guide. By way of introduction, this is just a little bit about me and what I've been doing for the last few decades. I've got registered in a few different things along the way, but I'm basically a mechanical engineer. This course, this discussion will introduce you to the most important resource available to engineers and architects engaged in the design of buildings and related infrastructure. It represents the collective knowledge of thousands of engineers and architects over the past century. It will provide you with design guidance based on building and space types, design disciplines and objectives, and products and systems. It will provide you project management resources focused on project delivery teams, project planning and development, building commissioning, and project delivery and controls. You will have a single, easy-to-access source for operations and maintenance guidance and exceptionally useful reference materials and tools. This is hands-on information that is easy to access and use, that has been proven over and over on thousands of projects, from small and routine to enormous and unique. You will learn how to quickly access and navigate this resource and put it to work for you on your next project. And it is free. First, a little bit about the knowledge we use in our engineering profession. There are two types of knowledge we use in designing and managing the construction of buildings and related infrastructure: theoretical and experiential. The theoretical knowledge we use is what we learned in engineering school, essentially the laws of applied physics. Bernoulli's equation, the laws of statics and dynamics, conservation of momentum, F equals ma, the second law of thermodynamics, etc. Experiential knowledge is what we have learned or been informed about by others through on-the-job experience, things like 100 square feet of space allowance per occupant for office space, quarter-inch per foot slope for drainage piping, 10 air changes per hour for restroom ventilation, etc., etc. This course is about accelerating your experiential knowledge. You will learn from the millions of hours of experience of many thousands of engineers and architects over the past 100 years. You will learn about an accessible and easy-to-use resource that brings this information together and provides you with proven design and construction guidelines, standards, and tools to use immediately in your day-to-day project design. This type of resource was not available 10 years ago. It truly provides a new dimension to our enterprise, designing and managing the construction of buildings and related infrastructure. This discussion will introduce you to a resource that will immediately put at your disposal the collective experiential knowledge of thousands of engineers and architects gained on thousands of large and small building and infrastructure projects over the past 100 years. Now, just to establish the bona fides, if you will, of what I'm going to be talking with you about, let me give you a little historical perspective. I think this is helpful. Less than 50 years ago, these were the tools available to engineers to apply theoretical knowledge: a slide rule, and a Marchant calculator, and many of you probably don't know what either one of those is. With these rudimentary tools, Hoover Dam, the Sears Tower, and most of the interstate highway system were designed. Today, of course, all manner of computing, calculating, and graphic tools are available. 50 years or so ago, to access and utilize experiential knowledge, the only media available were hardcover books, manuals, monographs, and reports that were not easy to be cognizant of and often difficult to obtain. For example, when designing the California State Water Project in the 1960s, the database of experiential knowledge was hardcover manuals and documents published by the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Corps of Engineers, and the Bureau of Reclamation. That was the state of the engineering art before the invention of the computer and the internet. Any information you could get was in hard copy format. In the last half of the 20th century, federal agencies, particularly the Department of Defense, began to pull together and document the experiential knowledge its engineers had gained over the past 50 years or so in designing and constructing thousands of building and infrastructure projects. These initial efforts were parochial, and there was not a lot of sharing among agencies even within DoD. The result was a lot of hard copy documentation of experiential knowledge that was scattered, obscure, and difficult to access. The computer and the internet have, of course, completely changed not only the technology to apply theoretical knowledge, calculators and computers, for example, but to access experiential knowledge, databases, the internet, Googling, etc. To its credit, the federal government, particularly the Department of Defense, has taken the initiative to correlate its scattered experiential knowledge bases and develop an internet-based platform that allows the building design and construction community at large to access and benefit from it. It has done this utilizing the coordination efforts of the National Institute of Building Standards, NIBS. NIBS has undertaken to pull this federal experiential knowledge base together into a single, comprehensive, easily accessible, internet-based resource called the Whole Building Design Guide, WBDG. This discussion will tell you how the WBDG is structured, walk you through some examples of how to access information you need, and we'll tell you about the modules that are particularly valuable and others that, in their current state of development, are less so. The Whole Building Design Guide is an internet portal, an easily accessible internet-based source of the experiential knowledge of thousands of engineers, architects, and construction professionals garnered over more than 100 years and tens of thousands of projects. It is reflective primarily of the most experienced building and infrastructure design and construction institution in the world, the U.S. federal government. A compilation of design and construction guidance, detailed specifications and computer-based tools and CAD details that are up to date and ready for use on projects today. And it is continuously updated and revised by design and construction professionals to reflect changes in building and infrastructure design and construction methods and materials. Before learning about what it can do for you in your day-to-day engineering activities, some comments are in order. First, do not make the mistake of assuming this experiential knowledge base is, quote, federal, end quote, and therefore not useful in the real world. This is not the case. This is an engineering knowledge base that is applicable across the spectrum of building and infrastructure projects your company or agency will encounter. Second, do not assume that because it is a federally generated knowledge base that it is excessively complex and bureaucratic. This is not the case. Building design and construction is a complex undertaking, and a knowledge base for this enterprise must inherently reflect that complexity. But the Whole Building Design Guide is not excessively complex. Although you will see the names of federal agencies extensively throughout the base, you need to simply look past them to the substantive guidance provided. Third, an important factor in appreciation of resources accessible through the whole building design guide is that it is a living base of experiential knowledge that is continually updated and refined by engineers working daily on real projects. This is the only knowledge base that has this real-time, real-world aspect. There are information resources in the professional community that may parallel some components in the whole building design guide, but they are usually produced by volunteer committees and updated only episodically. This is not to deprecate their importance in professional practice, but they lack the timeliness and proven utility of the federal experiential knowledge accessible through the whole building design guide portal. The manner in which the whole building design guide is generated also reduces the possibility of inappropriate influence exerted by vendors in the development of design and construction guidance. Fourth, do not think of the whole building design guide as being a cookbook approach to building design. It is not. The whole building design guide provides access to guidance that is always to be evaluated and tempered by professional judgment. It may seem less useful to an experienced engineer, but it needs to be recognized that many engineers with lesser levels of qualification and experience are employed by companies and agencies, and they will find the guidance the whole building design guide provides helpful. And finally, there are components and modules of the whole building design guide that are particularly useful, and others that, in their current state of development, are less so. To help you focus quickly on the best resources, topics of particular importance and utility in this discussion are designated with a single star. Exceptionally useful features get 2 stars. Watch for those stars as we move through this discussion. To begin, click on the internet link indicated above, www.wbdg.org, and go to the opening page. The opening page is rather busy, which can lead to confusion. To minimize this, focus initially on those tabs or pull-down menus running across the top. Again, remember that 1 star indicates where exceptionally useful information is located, and 2 stars is even more useful. And the tabs that are running across the cross of the opening page are design guidance, project management, operations and maintenance, and documents and references and tools. The most valuable, highly useful information and technical guidance is in the oddly named documents and references pull-down tab. There is some moderately useful information in design guidance and tools. For the building designer and the infrastructure designer, there is not a whole lot that is particularly useful in the project management and operations and maintenance tabs. And so keep your focus particularly on the documents and references tab. In addition to these tabs, there are 2 others, continuing education and something called BIM, that are not of any substantive value to building designers and infrastructure designers. Next, click to begin walking through the whole building design guide. Click on the design guidance tab, and you will see that the following sub-menus or pull-down menus are available: building types, space types, design disciplines, design objectives, and products and systems. 3 of these have some material of moderate value: building types, space types, and design objectives. Design disciplines and products and systems are not particularly useful. The information in the building types and space types elements is moderately useful, but the most useful design guidance information is in something called the Unified Facilities Criteria, which is buried deep in the Documents and References module. It will be explored in detail later. Here is a quick look at the building types, space types, and design objectives elements. Design disciplines and products and systems elements will not be discussed because in their current state of development they are not particularly useful. As an aside, the products and systems element contains links to the very useful Unified Facilities Guide specifications, UFGS, and Veterans Administration Master Specifications, VAMS. However, they are accessible from the Construction Criteria, CCB, in the Documents and References module and will be discussed later. Clicking on the Building Types submenu, drill down in a couple of categories. For example, clicking on Libraries, then on Public Libraries, then on Space Needs for Special Use Areas. There you will see there a table that shows some typical square footages for special use areas and is one type of information you may find useful in the Building Types pages. These are only guidelines and not requirements, but they can be helpful in space planning for new construction or renovation of existing space. This type of information is usually available for the other building types covered in this element. The occasional concept sketches may also be useful. The text information in the various pages of the Building Types module is a little too superficial to be of a lot of help to you. Here is another example. Clicking on Office Buildings, Conference Rooms, Example Program. Again, you find some square footage information and a concept sketch that can provide a starting point in space planning, but the rest of the information is a little thin. Explore the building types and other modules on your own to become familiar with information they contain, as well as links to information resources. You may find nuggets of knowledge that are exactly what you need. Keep in mind that the whole Building Design Guide portal is continually being updated and expanded, so a module which I may have characterized today as not too useful may become much more helpful in the future. Clicking on Space Types links. To explore the information in this element, click, for example, on the Courthouse Courtroom element, and you see narrative information, an example program, a couple of concept sketches, and some links to other sources of information. As is fairly typical in the Space Types module, the narrative information is fairly shallow, and the links to other sources of information are frequently to organizations that publish useful information commercially, but not to the actual information. This is not always the case, since links are sometimes to government sites where the information is directly available online at no cost. The concept sketches may be of some value, but the primary information that is useful is square footage numbers that can help in space planning. Another example you can look at is parking surface. The narrative information and sketches are shallow, but there are some links to other resources that will be helpful. Clicking on Design Objectives, the Design Objectives information is not particularly useful with one exception. Clicking on that link, the information is organized as indicated: accessible, aesthetics, cost-effective, functional, operational, productive, secure, safe, and sustainable. The only one of these submenus that is of some value is the sustainable. It has a nice presentation of the elements of what constitutes sustainable design. This is helpful because the sustainable concept is rather nebulous and usually depends on who are you talking to, the day of the week, and the time of day. Click on sustainable and take a look at it. You can almost use it as a checklist when you need to evaluate sustainability options for one of your projects. Also, it has some excellent links to more definitive information you can use on projects. The project management module is fairly shallow and not likely to be terribly useful. Click on the link indicated and you see the information is organized like this: project delivery teams, project planning and development, building commissioning, and project delivery and controls. But as with all of the modules and elements of the whole building design guide, explore them because you may find something useful there, and perhaps some may become more useful in the future as they are expanded and developed. The operations and maintenance element is also fairly shallow and not likely to be very useful. Click on the link indicated and you see the information is organized like this: real property inventory and computerized maintenance management systems. The information provided is of limited value in design and construction, but may be of interest to operations and maintenance personnel. As with all of the modules and elements of the whole building design guide, explore them because you may find something useful, and perhaps some may become more useful in the future as they are expanded and developed. The Documents and References tab is where very useful information is located. Click on the link indicated. The information in this module is organized like this: federal mandates, construction criteria base, periodicals, case studies, participating agencies, and industry organizations. By far, the most valuable element in the whole building design guide is the construction criteria base indicated here with the 2 happy stars. The federal mandates, periodicals, case studies, participating agencies, and industry organization elements are of limited utility but may provide helpful links to other web resources. The very valuable link here is the construction criteria base. Click on the link indicated and look at the contents of this component. Here is how the construction criteria base is organized: specifications library, regulations library, standards library, documents library, CAD library, energy library, environmental library, sustainable design library, and tools library. Note that the tools library is presented on the whole building design guide website as a separate tab and will be discussed in that framework later. The specifications library and documents library are by far the most valuable tools. Both the CAD library and tools library are also useful. The tools library is in this CCB element, however, it merely refers you to the main tools module on the whole building design guide opening page, and so will be discussed at that time. Let's look first at the specifications library. Here is how it is structured: Unified Facilities Guide Specifications, NAVFAC Specifications, NAVFAC Standard Specifications, NAVFAC Guide Performance Work Statements, VA Master Specifications, DOE General Design Criteria, and NIBS Specifications. The 2 elements in the specifications library that are very useful are the Unified Facilities Guide Specifications, UFGS, and the Veterans Administration Master Specifications, VAMS. Examine the UFGS in detail. The VAMS, the Veterans Administration Master Specifications, is structurally similar to the Unified Facilities Guide Specifications and so will not be discussed separately. Keep the Veterans Administration Master Specifications in mind when designing a healthcare facilities project. It is an excellent guide specifications resource. The Unified Facilities Guide Specifications is the most useful source of guide specifications available to engineers and architects engaged in the design and management of construction of buildings and related infrastructure. It is comprehensive, technically rigorous, always updated and current, and reflects the collective experiential knowledge of many thousands of engineers and architects acquired on hundreds of thousands of projects, small to monumental in size, undertaken over more than a century. Although developed and managed by federal government agencies, they are not in any substantive way peculiar to the federal government. They are not excessively complex, and they are not excessively bureaucratic. They are ideal for use as office standards for private companies and public agencies, large and small. They are organized into the recognized 43 sections of the Construction Specifications Institute format. To begin becoming familiar with them, click on the link indicated. At this page, you will see that the list of Unified Facilities Guide Specifications sections available to you to download without charge. Here is a small portion of what you will see. This is just a small portion of the specification sections dealing with concrete construction. These sections can be downloaded as either PDF or zip files. If downloaded as a PDF file, the file can be converted to a Microsoft Word doc file using any of the several PDF to Word converters that are available. This, however, is not recommended because it introduces some unnecessary complexity. It is recommended that sections be downloaded as zip files. The downloaded zip files are in the Specs Intact Editor, SIE, word processing software, and it's recommended the Specs Intact Editor be used for processing the Unified Facilities Guide Specification sections. This is because the Specs Intact Editor has a number of helpful features that would not be usable if a section is converted to a Word file. Also, the Specs Intact Editor word processing software has the same ease of use as Word, with the addition of some special features. We will discuss the Specs Intact system and the Specs Intact Editor in more detail later. At this time, download various sections and become familiar with manipulating and processing them. After you have gained some initial familiarity with the sections, their contents, and how to process them, take note of the following points. First, applicable publications. With a few exceptions, the sections in the specifications are organized into three parts: general, products, and execution. In examining the various sections, you will observe a feature that could be construed as excessively bureaucratic and cumbersome. This is the provision in the general segment of each section, a component headed Applicable Publications. This is an example. This slide indicates a sample of applicable publications. In the Unified Facilities Guide Specifications section, an applicable publication segment is referred to in the products or execution segment of the section in an abbreviated manner as ASTM A307, ASTM F593, etc. Why the applicable publications section? The reason is that the federal government is the quintessential deep pockets, and lawyers found a way to get into the pockets of federal taxpayers. Specifically, a lawyer, empathetic judge at an appellate level had ruled that a specific edition revision of an applicable publication must be recited completely if it were to be enforceable. For example, it was not sufficient to require compliance with ASTM F593. It was necessary to require compliance with ASTM F593 2002 revision 2008 stainless steel bolts, hex cap screws and studs. However, compliance with ASTM 593 might be recited in several locations within a section. To reduce the complexity of the specifications, it was concluded that the best approach was to provide an applicable publications section with references thereafter to the reductive form ASTM 593. This complex approach to dealing with applicable publications can either be observed in its entirety as it is by federal agencies, or observed in a less complex way by private companies and public agencies, large and small. The detailed exposition of an applicable publication is likely to become a bone of contention in few owner-contractor disputes. The risk, of course, increases if the owner is viewed as having deep pockets and when lawyers perceive there is a possibility of ripping off public taxpayers and honest, hard-working private companies. If your company agency decides to use a simplified approach, the applicable publication section can be simplified or even eliminated in different ways. Some comments on the design notes. This is one of the most valuable features of the SFGS is the design notes that appear throughout the sections to guide the designer in when and how to incorporate specific clauses in the specifications for a specific project. Here is what they look like. They are the text appearing between two horizontal lines of asterisks. This slide shows an illustration of a design note. When a specification section is ready to be printed, the Specs Intact editor provides a simple one-click function to remove the design notes from view, and they are neither seen on screen nor printed. Also, there are inspection and testing notes. Similar to the design notes, inspection and testing notes are provided at appropriate places in the section to guide the engineer and inspector in verifying a contractor's work. They have the same format and appearance as the design notes. Here is an example. This slide shows an example of inspection testing notes. Because the Unified Facilities Guide specifications have been developed by federal agencies, there are a couple of words of art that appear throughout. These are government and contracting officers. These can quickly be changed to whatever is your office standard, such as owner and engineer, with a simple find and replace function in Specs Intact Editor or Word. As noted, the Unified Facilities Guide specifications you download as a zip file from the specifications library of the construction criteria base are in the Specs Intact Editor word processing software. The whole building design guide provides information on this important tool in the specification aids element of the tool module, and we will discuss it from that location. Now the documents library. There are many valuable resources in the documents library, but none more useful than the Unified Facilities Criteria, abbreviated UFC. Awkwardly, it is buried in the whole building design guide and requires drilling down like this. Documents and references to construction criteria base, to documents library, to DoD criteria, and finally to Unified Facilities Criteria. To go directly to it, click on the link indicated. What you arrive at is a list of technical manuals and other resources that you can download and use without cost. Here is just a very small part of this list. All manuals are downloadable as PDF files. This slide provides a very small sampling of the Unified Facilities manuals. This is a valuable building design knowledge resource. Following are a few excerpts taken from some of these manuals that illustrates the depth, technical rigor, and hands-on utility of these publications. The table of contents provides a quick overview, obviously, of what is contained in each one of these manuals. Another illustration from a Unified Facilities Criteria Manual. Another look at a table of contents from a Unified Facilities Criteria Manual. And you can see the detail contained in these manuals on these slides. The next element is the CAD library, and it contains a selection of CAD details that are downloadable without cost and are compatible with widely used CAD software systems. For example, one of the very useful collections is at the link indicated here. This is a sample of the details you will find in that page. This is just a partial listing of the CAD details that are downloadable at this location. To reach this page without the direct link, you need to drill down like this. Documents and references to construction criteria base, to CAD library, to NavFac CAD details as an example. Next, tools. This is a valuable resource of tools available for downloading from the Tools module, all without charge. Click on the link indicated and you will see the tool resources organized by categories like this: code compliance, cost estimating, design and analysis, energy analysis, life cycle costing assessment, life cycle management, maintenance, professional and construction services, program and project management, and specifications aid. And as indicated by the happy stars, the highly valuable resource here is in the specification aids, and this is the specs intact system, which is integral to the Unified Facilities Guide specification. The key to understanding the specs intact system and using it efficiently is the specs intact quick start guide. You access it by drilling down like this, from tools to specification aids to specs intact to quick start guide. You can reach it directly by clicking on the link indicated. This takes you to this screenshot, and this is the Specs Intact Learning Guide series, the Quick Start Guide. And it is downloadable as a PDF file, and it is your key to utilization of the Unified Facilities Guide specifications and other specifications such as those produced by the Veterans Administration for healthcare facilities. And here is the contents of the Quick Start Guide. The resources available through the Whole Building Design Guide can be used as a personal reference resource for individual engineers and architects. The most important elements, as previously identified, are the Unified Facilities Guide specifications and the Unified Facilities criteria. They can also be adapted as office standards for private companies and state and local public agencies. Companies and agencies should consider integrating these two resources into their office processes. The starting point for integration of the Unified Facilities Guide specifications is training, beginning with the Specs Intact Quick Start Guide. And that brings us to the conclusion of this brief discussion of tools and specifications for building design and infrastructure design. I hope that this will be of some value to you, and that you may be able to use it in the future on projects that come across your desk. Thanks a lot again for letting me chat with you, and have a nice rest of the day. Bye.